you join with such excitement of thinking it's just like this, like a video game. At least that's what I thought, you know? And then it's just like, boom, immediately the first week I was there, it's like, look, dude, if you don't fucking, like, people are gonna die out here.
We're rolling. What's up, Cesar?
Hey, how's it going, Josh?
Hey, thanks for being here, brother.
For sure, for sure.
Let's just start off. How about you just introduce yourself and tell everybody what branch of service you served in and which years you served.
My name is Cesar Gallegos. I served in the United States Navy for 8 years. I showed up to boot camp in September 2009, and I left TOPGUN training facility in August 2017.
Nice. Talk to me a little bit about your upbringing, what your childhood was like, and like how you were raised, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm a first generation Mexican American. I grew up first half of my life in Pomona, right off of a Fairplex there. My parents are super traditional Mexican parents. My first half of my life was very like gang influence for sure. Grew up in near some neighborhoods that were always in some type of turf battle and stuff. But I mean, it was cool. I was a skater kid, so all of my friends were too. We grew up with like the Warp Tour right up the block in the fairgrounds every year. And then when I was junior in high school, I moved out to Fontana. It was a housing boom. Everybody started making money off selling their old, crappy houses in California. So we bought this like big, nice suburban home out there, and my dad did. And I spent the rest of my young adult life there up until I joined. And that was a different vibe. Like no more hoods. At least when I was there, it wasn't that way. We moved to this little like suburb called Southridge. And I went to Kaiser High School. Everybody got along in school. There was like no race wars. Like everybody was cool and stuff. And then that's when I got introduced to like the more Mexican side of things, right? Like I'd grown up into like a more gangster community. And over here was more like the ranch type Mexican guys. There's like ranches and ranch events and stuff, and jaripeos and rodeos and shit. So I got in touch with that side of my Mexican culture as well.
What's a jaripe?
Jaripeo is like a big rodeo. They show up
Okay.
with dancing horses, and there's like bandas, like this traditional Mexican music and stuff, and corridos and stuff. And it was like it was a different era of my life, I guess you could say, shifting into adulthood there. And then I joined in 2009, 2 years after or a year and a half after I graduated high school.
So what inspired you to join the military?
I was always, I feel like most of the generation I'm 32 years old, and we grew up in a very like action movie, you had movies like Jarhead come out, and like I was always super fascinated with like World War II history and stuff. I'm a huge history buff, and I always thought being in the military was cool. And I mean the commercials back then were sick, right? Like
Right.
Army of One and Accelerate Your Life, and you had these guys in the fucking ships, like with the red lights, writing on like some chalkboard or with the white pen or whatever. And I remember hearing like, get $50,000 to go to school. And I was like, damn, that's a lot of money. Or at least I thought it was, right? I thought it was like a cash check or something like that.
Right.
Obviously not. But I had a pretty serious girlfriend at the time. And she got pregnant, I got her pregnant. And I was like, shit, well, I'm going nowhere fast. I'm at community college, taking a class here, a class there. And I wasn't the hardest worker, man. My dad did a pretty decent job at spoiling us when it came to like having jobs and stuff. He was just like, oh, just make sure you're doing good in school. So I was like, you know what? I need some structure. I need some, I need a job, a good, like, a long-lasting job to take care of this kid that's coming. And I can't say that I'm like hugely patriotic, or I wasn't at that point, because I didn't come from that type of background. Like my dad wasn't a military guy, neither was my grandpa. I come from a line of ranchers and farmers and stuff. So
How did they feel about you joining the military?
my dad was pretty cool about it, man. He was like, you know what, like, this will probably be good for you. Like, you need some structure in your life. And my mom was obviously heartbroken. Everybody knows, like, well, if you grew up in Southern California, like, Mexican boys and their moms are fucking, inseparable. So she was, like, if I'm honest with you, I'd never done a bill of laundry or made my bed up to that point. You know what I mean? That's how much she took care of us and spoiled us. I mean, 3 meals a day, hot meals every day. It was fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
I was
Good
in for a
food,
shock.
too,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So, she was super heartbroken for sure. She's like, "Oh, how are you gonna leave your son? Like this and that." I was like, "Look, Mom, like this kid's got to eat, you know,
Yeah.
and I need to find a path to do something different because I'm just gonna sit here." And the economy was shit at the time. It was, you know, 08, 09, that big crash that just happened. So the only available jobs there was out there in the IE was like temp warehouse worker, you know, and you can only do that shit for so long. Like I remember getting a job like on a Wednesday, and then Friday I was like, I really don't want to come back Monday, you know, like.
Yeah. Did you get to pick your job for the Navy?
So check this out. I actually shout out to my recruiter, Jason Rhodes. He was the most honest recruiter I think anyone could have had, dude. I heard stories from people in boot camp who were like, dude, they told me I was gonna be a SEAL, you know, and like they were cooks, and or they told me I was gonna be a nuke engineer, and they were like in my job, you know, which was an aircraft mechanic, and I did get to pick my job twice actually. I initially got a Master at Arms contract. And then when I got to boot camp week 6, they do like a dispersing thing, right? You go up to admin and they kind of restructure your whole contract kind of deal, or they did to me at least. They were like, "Hey, dude, look, like the quota's been filled for Master at Arms, and like this is a list of the shit that you can do, you know." And at the time, it was like they had this thing called undesignated, which was like you pretty much showed up with no job to the boat, and you got to pick one later. Like when you did like a bunch of on-the-job training. And you got to strike a rate is what they called it. Or you could be an aviation bosun's mates, which is the guys on the flight deck moving the planes around. Or you could be a fuelie, you fuel the planes, or an ordnanceman, which loads the planes with bombs and stuff. And I didn't think any of that other shit was really attractive, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go undesignated, and if I find something cool while I'm there, I'll just do that, you know. So I did. I went in and designated, and then once I got there, so I picked my initial job at MEPS. And then I got reassigned at boot camp, and then on the ship 6 months later, I became an aviation structural mechanic.
Nice. What did that job entail? What did you have to do to make it to, like, I don't know, journeyman, if you will?
Well, like there's like 3 sides to it, I guess you could. The ship side is like I was ship's company, so we didn't have like designated aircraft. We worked on the aircraft when they showed up for deployment, right, when we go out to sea. So we pretty much did all like the intermediate level maintenance work and repair work. The organizational level, which is a squadron level, you own aircraft the entire time, and they do like the more basic maintenance. And then depot level is like real in-depth repairs, I guess you could say. But on the ship, it was just like you were half. They call them black shoes and brown shoes. You know, like you were half ship's company because you had to abide by like all their qualifications and rules and stuff, and but you're also aviation on the brown shoe side of things, so you had to get all those qualifications. But it was just a lot of PQS, as they call them, you know, personal qualification standards. It's just a bunch of on-the-job training, you know, like you pretty much do it with the guy who's already qualified.
Yeah.
And if he says you're good, he signs off on your qual, and then you slowly get signatures on this thing, and you do a quick little board with like your chief or the first class in charge of your division and stuff, and they give you the qualification on paper. I got lucky. I got sent off to do these schools called composite repair, where you work with like carbon fiber and Kevlar and fiberglass. So I had a really cushy job there, man. I had an AC shop out in the desert. I mean, don't get me wrong, you still have to do a lot of shitty stuff, you know, but for the most part, like my work was pretty intricate, I guess you could say. It had to be cold in there for the repairs for these like resins you mix to cure. And it was like, I guess, highly sought after in the aviation world, even in the civilian world, which led me to get my job that I have today that I'm super thankful for, you know. So I picked the right path, I guess you could say, as far as my Navy career goes.
Where did you go to school at?
Coronado. They
wow.
they have it's called Advanced Composite Repair Level 1 or something like that. And it's like a civilian guy teaches it. And he showed up. It was great, dude. I mean, I showed up, the first day in uniform. He's like, all right, guys, like the civilian class, you don't have to shave. You don't have to just show up tomorrow, you know, in your regular clothes. Like, hell yeah. So they gave me a credit card with like, you know, a rental car. And they're like, all right, dude, here, you're off for 4 weeks. Go have fun.
Wow. In
So
Coronado, man.
in Coronado, yeah,
That's
the weather was beautiful. It was summertime in LA, you know, and me being from so nearby, I got to see family the whole time. It was
nice.
I got treated pretty well right there, right off the
Yeah.
bat. So
Where did you land for your first duty station?
so that Coronado training I did after, right after my first deployment, after I had struck
Oh,
rate.
okay.
So that was like a training post. But initially, I flew from, so I got out of Great Lakes, and this was like basic training. Flew over to leave, went to Virginia, where my ship was supposed to be at, but it was out to sea on its deployment. Right, it was like halfway through, and they flew me to like Italy and then to Bahrain, which is like one of the jump off stations. And then I landed on the ship on those. Damn it, I'm already forgetting things. I can't remember the name of the plane anymore, but it's a COD. That's what it was, a personnel carrier. And I caught the wire, dude. So, you know, my first experience, I was looking out that window and the ship looked this big, you know?
Wow.
And then, like, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, like, I landed on the flight deck and that it was like a movie. The fucking door comes down, you know? And it's like, get the fuck out, get out, get out. And they had like all the sea bags were like under that net, you know, the cargo net.
Yeah.
Like, grab your shit, get the fuck. I was like, oh my God, dude, you get out and the jets are spinning, you know, and they're launching off the fucking flight deck. And it's just like, oh man, what the fuck did I get into, dude? So, and I was just super overwhelmed, you know, emotionally, but you're a kid. So I was just super excited, you know, and then they put us all down in the boat. And I was on that boat, I was on that deployment on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower for the first 4 months of my military real experience, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Earlier we were talking. You mentioned, something you had experienced when you first got there. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I guess it was my reality check. I had been there about the first 2 or 3 days are pretty hectic, right? Like it's a bunch of check-in, bunch of paperwork to make sure that, you know, everybody knows you're on the ship, pretty much got to account for you. And then the first day that like things settled down and I got to my shop was about 3 days after. And I remember I asked the guys like, hey, how do I communicate to my wife that I'm safe, you know, that I'm here? I was already married then. I was 20 years old and married, right? Typical military move. And they're like, oh, we're in River City. You can't do that. And I was like, what the hell is River City, you know? So he saw that I looked puzzled as hell. So he's like, oh, here, dude, sit down. Let me tell you what happened. And then like, you know, you could kind of decipher it. So I guess River City is like they cut all communications leaving the ship. You can only receive messages, but my wife didn't even know my email address there at that point. And a pilot had gotten down in the water. So I guess what happened was that one of the propellers on these E2C2s or these huge surveillance planes, right, had seized up like mid-flight. So he dropped the door on the aircraft and he let his crew get out. And then he guys the lowest possible to water, let these guys jump out. And then I guess right before he was about to jump out the plane, the other one seized up. And since he was so close to the water already, it was like immediate impact, right? But he had they carry this life vest, you know, that has a GPS beacon in it. And they had picked up a signal. So they thought just maybe he was out there floating somewhere waiting for someone to pick him up. So the ship didn't want any of these news getting out, you know, for whatever reason. If like there was, I don't know, bad guys nearby or whatever that wanted to pick him up before us, or just to keep it from going out to the media, to his family before the Navy could communicate with them. And then he was never found, you know, they never found him. And like a week later, they did his memorial in the flight deck. I mean, in the hangar bay. And I didn't even know this guy, right? Like I had never met him. But I remember like seeing his wife and his kids there, and like, you know, it's a whole show, dude. I mean, like they're in super pain. I think even his parents came on board, and they got this picture, you know, out there of him. They're gonna do like a burial at sea kind of deal, and it's just like it's such a reality check, you know. It's you join with such excitement of thinking it's just like this, like a video game. At least that's what I thought, you know. And then it's just like, boom, immediately. The first week I was there, it's like, look, dude, if you don't fucking, like, people are going to die out here. You know, no, there's nothing you can do about it. There's 5,000 people on board. Just like statistics alone says that a few of you guys aren't going to make it back. And it stuck with me after that. You know, I was just like, man, I really got to be careful out here. This shit isn't a game. But yeah, that was like my first reality check in the military for sure.
Wow. So what was your typical day like being on ship?
Dude, the ship life. For all you Navy guys that see this, see, that's what I'm saying. That's was such a shout out to my recruiter. He kind of broke all of this down before I even got there. You know, he's like, "Look, dude, it's gonna suck. Deployments suck, but you're gonna get back, and it's gonna be like a normal job. You go to work every day, and you go home every day, right? When we're port side, when we're home, but out to sea, it's a 12 on 12 off day. So you wake up in the morning, you show up to your shop, you get a list of stuff that has to get done. You have 12 hours to do as much as you possibly can, and then the second shift, the night shift comes in, and then you're off for 12 hours. But you would think like you don't have. You're in a ship. There's only so much you could do before you're bored as shit. So I always, when people ask me like, "Oh, what was it like?" I was like, "Man, you were just really bored. You're either lifting weights or eating, right?"
Yeah.
You had like the Air Force, or what is it called, Armed Forces Network on the TVs or you could watch like flight operations, which is pretty much it. So you're watching like whatever movie had come out right before you left was on the loop, or you were working out. We did have gyms. We had like 3 or 4 gyms in there, just in different places with like cardio gyms and weight gyms and stuff. So everybody got jacked. Everybody got in shape because there's nothing else to do. And you watch movies and you talk shit all day. You know what I mean? Like you get off work and you go back to your shop because it has AC, or you're berthing. You're just kind of sitting there playing spades or cards or whatever, or we had these little things called these little rooms. I can't even remember what they're called. I think they were like little lounges. That's what they were. The lounges in the berthings, and it was just a bunch of guys just talking shit, getting in your head. It's just it's like a big fraternity house, I guess you could say, on the guy's side. So,
Did you guys ever getting into any beef with each other? Being
oh yeah, dude. Yeah, we called one of my buddies, Tobias. He was there my first, and I think it was part of my second. No, just the first deployment. What did we call it? I think we called it like getting shut down or some shit like that, right? Like you think you're this big tough guy, but there's always a guy who's bigger than you. And you always had guys that get right up to that point, and then one of them realizes like, damn, I'm probably gonna get my ass beat right now, so they chill out. And it's super frowned upon, right? Like that's the last thing you need out in operations is some type of conflict in between people, but it happens. They do happen, and I never got. I was always I was a little more. I picked my like the people I was super close with a little tighter than a lot of people. I mean, there's 150 people in my division, so you couldn't be friends with everyone, I guess, if you wanted to say that. But the guys that were in my shop that I was super close with, we were all pretty on the same page as far as little conflicts here and there, but nothing crazy.
What was your favorite thing about being on ship?
The port calls, man, for sure. I think anyone who's ever been in the Navy and has done a med cruise will tell you that, like I said, growing up here in Southern California, the only other place I'd ever been to outside of LA or outside of California was Mexico, right? Where my parents were from. So going to places like Italy and Portugal and Spain, they were like dreams come true, dude. For a young kid that didn't come from a whole lot. It was intense. Again, I'm a huge history guy, so I got to go to the Colosseum and to the Vatican, and I was like, oh shit, like I never thought I would be in a place like this. So that was the best part for sure.
How often did you have to do that? Like, what were your rotations like?
They sucked. They really did, dude. It was like a little bone they threw at you. I mean, it was still great. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, you'd go out to sea for 40, 50 days, and then you pull in for a week to port. And out of those, you were there for 4 days most of the time, right? You don't want to be there too long, I guess, operations-wise. I'm not sure exactly why, but you're there for like 4 days. And then one of those days you had duty, right? So you had to stay on the boat. So you really had 3 days. So you had to jam pack as much as you can possibly. And then one day you're going to be hammered, right? Because the first thing you do when you get off the boat is go get beer. And because the drinking age is 18. So you go get shit-faced the first day. The second day you're somewhat hungover and you're trying to get the sightseeing in. So you really have like 1 or 2 days to really take in this other country that you've never been to. And then you go back out for another 40, 45 days, and then you come in again. It's just back and forth, back and forth. And the deployments are usually like 6, 7 months. And you come home for a little bit, and you go back out again. So.
And did your wife eventually did she move over to the base?
Yeah. So it was pretty quick, dude. Like I said, I landed on my first deployment there. Then we pulled into Virginia. I was stationed in Virginia for 5 years on the Ike, and she met me there. This is how you know we were kids, dude. I mean, like, who flies out with a 9-month-old baby? You know, just for me telling her like, hey, meet me there. We had nowhere to stay. You know, we didn't have a car. Like, it was a dumb move, but I don't know, dude. I guess like it's part of being young, you know, and not thinking ahead and not being scared half the time. So we were in a hotel for about a week before we found a place to live, and then we, you know, luckily you put money together because you're out to sea, so you can't really spend it on a whole lot. And my wife at the time was home with her parents, so she didn't, you know, have a whole lot of expenses either. So I think I had like, I don't know, we put $6,000 together when I was out to sea. So you get back, that's enough for like a deposit to buy like a mattress and spoons and plates. And like, I think I put a down payment on a little Volkswagen that I bought. And that was it, dude. She was out there with me for 5 years, you know.
And did you ever, at any point, did you change duty stations or assignments or anything?
Yeah. Like I went over to, we're on a seashore rotation in the Navy, and mine was 5-3, so 5 years out to sea, and then 3 years, you know, you go on a shore duty. So my shore duty was at Top Gun training facility. It was in Nevada, in Fallon. It's in the middle of nowhere. Nothing like the movie Top Gun, by the way.
No,
not even close.
Is that where that's at right there? In the
So
movie?
yeah, well in the movie it's in Coronado, right?
Oh,
so
right.
because it was the '80s, so there was not really like any Middle East conflicts then. You know, they were very light still. So the training was pretty much like, what I want to say was like, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone out there, but it seemed like in the movie at least, it seemed like it was like a cool little getaway for pilots, you know.
Right.
But here it was super serious. So, like these guys were out there. You know, they had the terrain, which was, I'm guessing, very similar to like the mountains of Afghanistan and Iraq, out there in the desert in Fallon. And they would show up, and it's a pretty demanding schedule for them. They're flying all fucking day, like all day. They get in that plane, and then they go up and do dogfights, and they have like these makeshift cities, you know, 100 miles out, 200 miles out, or whatever, and they go and they bomb these targets and come back. And I was doing the same thing there, maintenance on planes, you know, fucking breaking down rust, changing parts, you know, all the stuff to keep them going, to keep them flying.
Did you get to see some of these dogfights?
Well, I mean, they're up and they go, you know, they take off with they're like simulated dogfights.
Right.
So you have like the bad guys, which is like the instructors, right? And then the good guys, which are the students, and they go up in the air and they do all these, but they're in F-18s where they go out, you know, 20, 30 miles.
Yeah.
You don't see them for an hour, and they show up and they lose most of the time is what I hear. But I wasn't super involved in like the culture of it all on their side, you know.
Did you ever get an opportunity to go up with any of them?
I didn't. No, I got to fly on a helo on a 60. I did a repair deck out in Bahrain. So I got a cat shot, which is super fucking cool on the COD. So I got to get shot off the catapult on the aircraft carrier, and then on the way back the COD broke. So they flew me back on a helicopter, which was pretty cool, but not that cool when you're hungover, you know. But yeah, dude. No, I never got to fly like the actual jets, you know.
Yeah.
Never got to be, or you know, a lot of guys do. They get like these opportunities where they're like Sailor of the Year or something like that, or they re-enlist in the plane. Right?
Yeah.
You could pick to re-enlist anywhere. So they go up on these jets and they have a good time up there. But I never got to do it. No.
That sounds like it's pretty difficult to get.
It's pretty rare, dude. I think I know maybe 2 people that have ever done it.
Yeah.
But you know, you meet shit ton of people in the Navy.
Yeah, I remember watching that movie growing up. Like everybody wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Yeah, dude. Man. I mean, you know, I tried while I was in. There was this thing called the Stay 21. It was like a pilot program, and I applied for it. But you know, you got to be like shit hot too.
Yeah.
You got to have like a pretty impressive resume right off the bat as an enlisted personnel for them to be like, all right, this guy's worth sending to, you know, college and then to flight school and then make him a pilot. You know, but yeah, those guys are like, they're immortalized on the flight deck, you know?
Yeah.
They're these guys that go drop bombs and save Marines, and yeah, they're impressive for sure.
What was the, you know, adjustment like for you? Because you mentioned that growing up, your mom did everything for you, laundry, food, everything, and then
Yeah.
going to the military, you got to do all your own shit.
Yeah, that
right?
shit was a wake up call, man, for sure. I remember like week 2 of boot camp, I'm like shaving, I didn't even have facial hair, but you do it anyways,
Yeah.
because they're gonna call you out anyway. So I remember sitting there looking in the mirror like, what the fuck did you do, dude? Like, what are you doing here? Like half these people don't like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't give a shit about you. Like you be home with your mom's cooking and in your bed. But you just stick it out, I remember my dad leaving and he's telling me like, I remember he told me, he was like, hey dude, like give it all you got. Make sure you come back with that uniform, because I had that reputation as a kid, dude, like if you ever met any of my siblings, they will tell you like I'd like to pick shit up and leave shit done halfways. That's just like the attitude I had, because I think it was partly because my mom coddled me so much, and partly because it was just my personality, like I picked something up and if I wasn't good at it, I was like, I'm not doing that no more. So I liked things that came easy to me. I liked like when I was good at something, and I was not good at being in the Navy. I mean, no one is. You're not supposed to be, right? In boot camp, like everything's supposed to be hard. Everything's supposed to suck. So yeah, I thought about it a lot. I was like, man, this thing really sucks. I don't want to be here. But then you get done, and it's like it's such a sense of accomplishment. You're like, hell yeah, fuck, I did this much. Like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Yeah.
And that's when you start building that like, I think that responsibility that a lot of military guys are famous for, right? Like that punctuality and that structure. So yeah.
Were your parents able to make it to your graduation?
They weren't. No. My dad's wasn't a very good guy growing up, so he couldn't travel like that to other places. And in the Mexican community, my mom, moms stick with the husbands, So no, my wife and my sister came out. And my son, who was born 3 days before I left.
Oh, that's a great feeling.
Yeah, dude, that was intense, man. I will say, like, I do thank most of my success to like that drive you get from being a parent, Yeah, there was times that I was like, all right, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm just gonna go home. And then I really thought about it. I was like, no, I can't. I gotta stick it around for the kid and for the wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was challenging for sure.
So you did a total of what, 8 years, right?
Yeah, 8 years.
What was your favorite part about that 8 years of service?
I think most people will say it's the people you get to meet, You create these bonds with these guys that like, you come from all walks of life and different belief systems most of the time and different cultures, and you create this weird bond that like up to date, like I could pick up the phone and call any of these guys, it's like we're back on the boat, 10 years ago or whatever it is now. I think that part is the hardest part, is leaving those people behind. That's why I try to keep like as much contact with as many of them as possible. But it's difficult, It's either you're in different states or people, pick different walks of life after the military. But that's the part that I think emotionally as a person is the part that I think that I got the most out of. Professionally, just habits, dude. Knowing not to quit, knowing that there's something about knowing that you don't have a choice but to do what you have to do. Once that gets drilled into you enough, you kind of take that with you forever. It's like, you don't, like I said, you don't really have a choice. If people don't ask you to do things in the military, you just do them.
Right.
It's like if a guy tells you your chain of command tells you to do something, you just go do it. So here I apply that to work a lot, and it's been really good for me. It's it's helped me succeed pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah.
Post Navy. So.
I want to get into like transitioning out and all that, but before I do, is there anything that you want to get in there, during your time in service?
You know what I think? I always thought, like I said, I wasn't like, I'm not a combat veteran, so I don't know like that side of things, But from the people that I have met that did have a really life-changing experience, I find it hard to push through, day to day, post or combat experience. If there's any message to send out, I would like to tell all the kids out there, because we were kids at the time, 18, 19 years old. You're a kid, to not take that decision so lightly. You know what I mean? Like to know that it is going to be life-changing. Like even if you don't go to combat, right? Like you're going to be a different person coming out of there no matter what. And a lot of good comes out of it. but do know that there is a possibility that you got to be ready for it. You know, it's not a game. It's not PlayStation. Just know that it can be life-changing for you for the rest of your life, and you got to be willing to be ready for that and to accept that, because there's no going back, you know. So
So after 8 years, what inspired you to make the decision to transition out?
family, for sure, 100%. One thing that I think that I still find difficult is that father-son relationship that I have with my son. It's still in the works, you know, and it always is. Normally, like as a normal parent, I think as a non-military parent, you know, it's difficult as it is. But as a military parent, like I mean, I would show up for 6-7 months, and then I would be gone for 6-7 months. And the military always came first, right? Like it was before family. So I think my son, my wife did a great job at playing both roles while I was gone, but she shaped him, or started raising him the way that she saw like fit. And I feel like for the first 6 years of his life, he had no like real fatherly influence. Like I came home and I mostly just wanted to spend time with him. And then when he did things that I didn't like, I didn't have the patience to deal with it, right? Because again, being in the military, everything in a snap of a finger, and you forget, being a young parent, one, and two, being in the Navy, like you forget that these kids are not your Navy people, they're not your buddies, in the Navy. So it's something that I really had to work on. So I there was no way to do that unless I got out,
Yeah.
to have that time back. When I was on shore duty, I didn't have to deploy, so I started building that up, and I started seeing the difference on how he was starting to be a little more like me, and he was, and I was starting to get more patient with him, like all of a sudden him spilling that fucking cup of soda at Jack in the Box wasn't a big deal anymore, you know what I mean? But initially I was like, yo, what the hell are you doing? And he's looking at me like, dude, I'm fucking 5, what are you doing? So it's hard, and I saw it getting better, and my wife too was like, hey dude, like we got to make a choice here. Like this is getting super difficult for me. We at this point we had 2 kids now, and she's like, it's going to be only harder with a daughter as well, and you need to be more present. And she said, I don't think you can do that being deployed. And I was like, no, you're absolutely right. So I made that conscious decision, to.
It's great to listen to you talk about your wife, because part of the mission on what we're doing here at Urban Valor is to uplift the military spouses, right? Whether it be a wife or a husband, because I think they deserve a lot more recognition. Because having a wife at home or a husband at home while you're overseas, and somebody that's taking care of your kid, for me, and I'm sure for you, it gives you that inspiration and motivation to keep pushing forward, and they're really your rock. And so how important was it, for your wife? Obviously your wife's important, but how important was it for you, for her to stick by your side during your time in service?
I always tell her, like, because you do get the slight resentment, right? Because they always take the back seat, and they have to put their careers on hold, and their professional development or whatever it is that they want to do on hold, to make sure that they support you, because the military comes first. I always told her, dude, like every ounce of success that we've had from the moment we got together till now, you got to know that you are like 75% of that, because I couldn't have done it without her. That's for sure. You know what I mean? Like, like you said, like that inspiration that comes from having your family, and to be able to provide or whatever it is, and to make it out of that episode of your life successfully, like that's what keeps you going, right? So if for whatever reason she would have said, like, you know what, this is not for me, I'm gonna call it a quits in the middle of my enlistment, like what was I gonna do? There's not much you can do, right? So and then that motivation kind of goes away. It's like, well, fuck it, like my wife's gone, my kid's with her, like what do I have to? And I think that a lot of veterans deal with that, But yeah, dude, she was definitely, she still is 100%. She still backs me up 100%. I couldn't be more thankful for her, awesome, to be honest.
Did you struggle at all transitioning out of the military?
Yeah, man, we should definitely touch on that, right?
Yeah.
I think that not enough people, I think that whole like invincible complex that we get, that you need to have, that mentality you need to have out there, right? Like to be successful in the greatest military in the world, or any military, I guess you could say. But to be like that fucking macho, that we got this, like we're gonna make it out of here, we're gonna be successful, we're gonna win. You kind of put your well-being in the back seat, you know? So you don't really prepare for the world when you're about to get out. And I don't think the military, you know, I don't think our government does a good job. It's better. It's much better, because I heard it used to be like, here's your fucking DD-214. Good luck, buddy, you know? And now there is a transition class. I got to go through this thing called TAPS. I can't remember the acronym, you know, but it's like Transition Assistance Program or something like that for servicemen. And it did help me, like, it did teach me to not cuss in the, you know, because you can't do that shit no more. Like, you know, you can't call people pussies for not doing their work. Like, you get fired for that. So they teach you that. They teach you how to write a resume, you know, which helps you out a lot, I think. And they give you like a lot of tools, you know. They do have some, what do they call them, like job placement, you know, agencies that, like, I think, shout out to Orion. They helped me out getting out to place me in a job that related to my military experience, of course. But I still don't think it's enough, man, because you could just show up to that class and not do nothing, you know what I mean? Like, there isn't any real, like, checks and balances there. Checking back in with the service members, especially the younger cats. You know, I was getting out. I was 28 years old. I had a family, so I was slightly, you know, this much more mature than the next guy. And I knew that I had to get a job or else I was gonna be fucked, right? Me and my family. But like, if I was, you know, when I joined, if I was 24 getting out and I didn't have a family, and, you know, in my job in the military, you know, or I didn't know how to translate that to the civilian world, I would have been screwed, dude, 100%. I'm like that 0.1% that got lucky on the way out, you know. Most of my buddies struggled when they got out to get jobs. Shit, most of them struggled to have a place to live, you know. So it's like, the transitioning program has to get better. And 90 days isn't enough. Like, 90 days out, you get to go transition. Like, what the dude, like, civilian people, you know, kids get out of college and it takes them 6 months to get a job, and they're fucking engineers, you know. And it's like, how are you giving this guy who's changed aircraft tires for 4 years 3 months, you know, to try to figure things out when he gets out? So yeah, that gave me definitely left a sour taste in my mouth for sure. I was like, you know, I got lucky. I got a job right off. I had a job before I got out, if I'm honest. I got recruited, so they even waited for me. I guess, you know, for whatever reason, they really liked me to get to move over to SpaceX. But like I said, a bunch of my buddies had the same experience that I did, worked on the same shit that I did, got out and couldn't figure it out, man. Wow. You know what I mean? So, and that's a bad time for them.
Yeah. Do you have any struggles transitioning back into, you know, mixing in with civilians again?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, right? Yeah. That's another thing, dude. Like, there's so many resources that go to so many things in our militaries that, let's be real, man. Sometimes you question that shit when you're out there. You're like, do we really need that? Do we really need that stockpile there? You know, of useless shit that we're gonna throw out at some point. And it makes me wonder, because I think mental health is one of the things that I thought wasn't real when I was in the Navy. You know, like, oh, those guys, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to get out. You know, they're too institutionalized. Is what we used to say, right? And then you get out and you're like, no, this shit's real. I don't know what I'm doing out here. I don't fit in. I don't know how to talk to people. You know, like, I used to think anxiety was fake. I used to think people would make that shit up to go to sick call, you know? And then I got out, and then I had anxiety, you know, from, like, I remember going to fucking movie theaters and, like, sitting, like, as close to the exit as possible and thinking, like, shit, like, what do I do if some guy comes in here and blasts up this place, you know? Like, or, like I was telling you, something as simple as, like, people walking on the wrong side of the fucking hallway at work, you know, and I bump into them, I'm like, what are you doing? And they're looking at me like, what are you doing? You know, like, we walk wherever the fuck we want here, you know, like, there's no site to walk on. And all these things were stressing me out a lot. And then you pile on, like, the stresses of real life, you know, of non-military life. Because when you're in the military, the one thing you don't worry about, which is really cool, is a job, right? That paycheck comes in no matter what, as long as you sign your name on the line. So Here it's like you can get fired, dude. Like tomorrow you might be out of a job. So that's always something that's in the back of your head. So yeah, you added that to all the little things that you're not used to seeing or that were wrong when you were in the military, and you start piling it up, and before you know it, you're blowing a gasket, dude. You know, like I told my wife how like I would get super mad when people would drag their feet, you know, because if you're in the Navy or in any military, you know, like if you don't walk with the purpose, like you get called out in a heartbeat.
Right.
Like, where the fuck are you going? What are you doing? Right? Like no one hunched over to do anything at least not in in the Navy that I was in, you know. So everything was like, hey, go do that. You're fucking up and going. So having to ask people to do things, like my first leadership position I ever took in the military, like got in trouble for cursing at someone, you know, like, hey, dude, you can't cuss at people. And I was like, well, I asked them to do it. And they're like, well, how did you ask them? Well, I was like, well, I told them to go do it. And they're like, no, you have to ask people, you know. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Like, I would just tell my guys to go do stuff when I was in. Like, and we go home when you're done, you know.
Right.
And here it's like, hey, dude, like it's 3:00, I'm going home, and it's like, you didn't even finish, dude. And it's like, well, bye.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god, you know, it's a hard transition, dude. I think we need to start like really highlighting that for people getting out, that it's gonna be a different world when you get out, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be different, and you gotta be ready for it.
Do you think there's anything that that you know a military serviceman or woman can do to prepare themselves for it before getting out?
I would say, like, first things first, like, please, for all you guys still in, go to sick call, please. Document everything that you feel that's hurting you on the way out, or even, you know, while you're in. Like, I remember getting hurt on the flight deck. I remember I was fresh still, I don't know, maybe like a year in. And I was like, it was nighttime, night ops, and I'm hauling ass, right? And there's like, we used to tie down these planes with these big chains, and I didn't see it, dude. Like, it's a rusted chain. You're not gonna see that at night, you know? And I'm running, and I have these like chalks to chalk up the aircraft, you know? And I trip, and I ate shit pretty good. And then, you know, on the flight deck, they have this stuff called non-skid. It's like super grippy asphalt, you know? And it just destroyed my left knee. And I remember it hurt like a motherfucker, you know, but like I got up and I just kept going, you know, and they like called me to the side afterwards, like after flight, like, hey dude, how's that knee? You know, it's like, you know, it's destroyed. And I was like, oh, it's fine, you know, like I didn't want to be the weak one, you know what I mean? Like, and even then, even though I didn't go to sick call, right, I still got shit for it. Like, we still went back to, hey, how's that knee, pussy? You know, like, and it's like, damn, dude, like, go get that shit checked out. You never know. Like, I have trouble with it up to date. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
And it's like, I didn't document it, so like, you know, same thing for like your head, dude. I remember being stressed out in the military, or when I first got out, and like, oh, it'll go away, and it doesn't. You know what I mean? You're just making it worse. So, like, do yourself, you know, that favor of taking care of yourself, because, man, there's like too many people that just don't make it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's super sad that they were like a phone call away, or a therapist away, or a session away, you know, from still being here with us, or feeling okay, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
You see all these guys out there that they're vets and they're having a really hard time. Yeah, dude, trust me, like, as soon as I let my ego go and I put my guard down, and I was like, I'm a fucking normal human being like everybody else that just has a little bit extra experience on that side of things, it changed my life. You know, like, I got therapy. I went to see a therapist, and, you know, shout out to her. She did a great job with me, and 2 months later I was a new person, dude. Like, that's all it took for me. Watch, like, 2 months, like 2 months to be a better dad, to be a better human, to be a fucking better husband. Like, to me, that's worth every
Right.
every
It's
second of it, you know. So
Yeah, it's you know, fuck anybody saying that, oh,
Yeah.
you're a pussy, you got to go see a therapist. Like, what you just said, and what you just, you know, had the balls to go do and go see a therapist, and you just said it made you a brand new person. I mean, fuck the person that thinks it's
Yeah.
weak. I mean, now it's better for your wife, it's better for your kid, for your family, and for everybody that you're around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
yeah, like, why are you gonna put your family through that hardship, you know, just because someone that you don't even know sometimes, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't know you,
Yeah.
the person you are, like, or what you've been through. Like, why are you gonna give them that time of day and hold on to something? Like, yeah, dude, like, getting home being short with your kids, that's fucked up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now you're putting them in the position to go get therapy after, like, it's just a chain that never ends. So I was like, man, I really needed to go. And it's like you said, right? Like, I think we got to be super clear on the fact that it's not just combat veterans that have a hard time getting out. Like, I tell people all the time, like, man, you're a kid. You're like 18, 19, 20 years old. Like, you're still developing. Like, there's kids, you know, in college at that point doing some real dumb shit, and you're overseas doing some real grown man shit, you know, like, or doing whatever you got to do. Like, the amount of responsibility that we put on our service members at such a young age, and the shock that it is to go from being coddled at home, right, to like becoming a grown man overnight. Like, that shit's nothing to like blink at, you know. So I think we got to start taking those things into account. I think a lot of people like to compare, like, oh, you know, my fucking grandpa in World War II, like, he fucking killed Nazis and shit, and he was just fine when he came back. First and foremost, you don't even know that. You don't know what that guy had to fight the rest of his life, you know? And secondly, like, cultures change, dude. Like, your grandpa was probably fucking working when he was 14 years old, and he was a grown man by the time he was 18, you know? But, like, we're talking about, like, you know, kids our age, like, dude, I was playing video games before I went to the Navy. You know, I was still a child. Like, in what it fits, like, you might be grown, but in here, you're still a kid, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's I think that has an effect on people, and I think that when you get out, like, you gotta pay attention to, you gotta listen to it, because it'll come back to get you for sure.
Right. Yeah, it's powerful, man. Well, we're gonna get ready to wrap it up and cut the tape, but before I do, I give everybody opportunity to say any last words before we cut it off, man.
Thank you, you know, for the program. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I like we talked a little bit before, like, I'm one of the lucky ones that, like, got out and immediately had a system where, like, or a support system that worked. But and I've been wanting to do a little more. You know, I have some friends that didn't have the same luck that I did, and I think that what you're doing is super important. And I think it's and I've been wanting to do more. And this is like the first step, right? Like, you got me moving. So thank you again. Thank all you guys out there who do support your veterans, and feel free, man, to, like, you know, talk to people. Sometimes that's all they need. If you see, like, all you guys out there who have buddies who got out already, like, give them a phone call, dude. It's that simple sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes people are on the verge of some real tough times, and getting that phone call, like, it'll take you back. It takes me back, you know? Like, sometimes I get a phone call from one of my buddies I haven't heard in a while, and I think about all those good times overseas and getting fucked up and being in strip clubs and getting in trouble and not making it to, like, back to the ship on time, whatever it is, you know? Like, you'll start remembering all those stories, and it's good memories that you made, and it can save a life sometimes.
Yeah.
So please reach out to all your buddies out there, and yeah.
Well, thank you for your service, Cesar. Thank you for coming and take the seat, man. It's a big contribution to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road.